My name is Terrence Turner. I serve as tonight's producer and director. The purpose of tonight's live town hall was to provide a space for meaningful, balanced dialogue concerning the proposed Amendment 2. For weeks, we organized and worked tirelessly to produce this event. We thank our participating panelists who have joined us tonight. Let me emphasize that we went above and beyond to invite any voice in favor of Amendment 2 to sit on this panel. We reached out to every newly elected official in the city of St. George, including Mayor Yates himself. From the members of the city council, we were met with silence. Our calls and messages were not returned, with the exception of Councilwoman Cook, who responded with a simple no, and at-large Councilmember Talbot, who stated a death of a relative of a friend would prevent his participation. Our communication with Mayor Yates' assistant, Asher Luke, resulted in him stating initially that the mayor would be interested in the panel but needed to run it up the chain for their PAC to see if he should participate. As of Tuesday of this week, Mr. Luke called us back to inform us the mayor had a conflicting event. We offered to have a representative of our media team attend the event for media coverage. Mr. Luke then clarified that the event was actually a meeting. Senator Rick Edmonds also previously committed to this event, but after the recent Supreme Court ruling, Senator Edmonds stated he wouldn't be able to participate even though this town hall is not addressing the recent ruling. I say all this to be clear. This space was offered ad nauseum to those in favor of Amendment 2. We also extended the invitation to regular residents of St. George who actively support this measure on social media. One in particular, a Mr. Tommy Duran, responded with he wasn't into attending struggle sessions. Nevertheless, we are here to have the conversation and hopefully provide information to the people before they cast their votes. I now leave you in the hands of our moderator, Ms. Destiny Beasley.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to Keep It Local, where we keep it everything culture, community, and of course, the 225. Now, this is something different that we're doing. We are hosting a live town hall panel discussion. Usually you might see me, just pre-recorded, post-production, but no, we're giving it to you live with the live audience, and we're live streaming. So this is all about the proposed amendment that will be on the ballot. It's about the proposition of St. George possibly breaking away from the parish and creating their own school district. And so we have our panelists joining me so we can engage in, a healthy, meaningful, and productive conversation to inform our voters out here right before early voting. And early So do not sit at home, okay? Don't let the suspension hold you back from going to vote. All right, so with Mr. Sean White, thank you for joining us. He is representing Pulse. And we have Pastor Fred Jeff Smith, Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, and Miss Caitlin Joshua, co-founder of Abortion in America. Thank you so much for joining me, you all. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. So we're just going to kick things off. So this amendment has been well discussed on both sides. You've seen it on social media. There's been a lot of propaganda as far as vote yes from St. George residents. You've seen saying vote no. So you get mixed views. And there's no reasoning behind it from some people. And you have Zachary and Central, they were able to create their own school district. So in your own words, can you tell me, why do you believe St. George should be up next or either remain in EBR schools?
You want to start?
I defer to the two experts.
Sean, you want to start? I'll hop in.
Sure. The simple answer is that the EBR school district has a $600 million budget. They have opportunities to develop your skills in HVAC, plumbing, STEM, performing arts, a wide range of things. So it's that opportunity that gave my son a chance to go to an Ivy League school. He graduated from Woodlawn High School. He transferred here. He wasn't part of the magnet program. He was part of the Good Scholars program. He did well here. He got a lot of love and support from the EBR parish school system. So he did well on his application, his interview, and he's at Columbia University, and he's starting his master's program
Oh,
while he's an undergraduate.
oh wow.
So EBR Schools has a lot of good things going for it and a lot of potential. Unfortunately, the way they grade schools is they take an average. And some people with food insecurities, housing insecurities, special ed needs, all those get wrapped into this one big bundle. So the grade is more a financial status than it is an accurate status of the education provided.
Okay.
And you can tell that by Central. Within 2 years of breaking away, they were considered an A school, but I'll tell you, those students were A students before they broke away. Anytime you cut pieces out of the cloth, you're always going to cut the good parts. Not to say that the rest of the cloth isn't good, but it's a matter of what's good for the most amount of people. Zachary, Baker, and Central don't even equal St. George. They didn't have to pay any legacy cost. So this is a way different circumstance than their situations were. So they're going to lose 25% of their budget. And if you think about anybody in general, if your boss said you're going to make 25% less starting tomorrow, you're going to freak out. And you're going to have to cut some things. So the magnet programs that St. George gets to stay in are going to get reduced. Everything else that EBR is doing for the last 3 years, they've been improving. Right now, they're at the highest score they've ever been. That's definitely going to slow their momentum if you cut them 25%.
They recently were awarded the national magnet program, were they not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that proves that they've been doing really good, like you've been saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think that it's beneficial to me or any of our students for this new school district, because yes, they will be an A school district, but EBR created that.
Yeah.
It's the EBR education that's going to make them an A school district. So they're not losing anything, and so far they haven't said exactly how they're going to benefit. So that's why I don't believe that they need to break away.
Yeah. And then back to your question around should they be up next? We get that a lot, right? Me and Sean volunteer a lot as parents with kids in EBR school system, and every time we're at the doors and knocking at the doors, having conversations with folks, they'll say Zachary did it, Central did it. Not to say that they're in favor of it, but more so questioning why don't y'all support them doing the same thing? And for me, I can't get over the antithesis of it all, right? So I'm gonna tell my age. I graduated from Woodlawn High School 15 years ago, and I remember my principal at the time kind of explaining to us what was about to happen around teachers having grievances for students being able to take advantage of the same program that I took advantage of, which was the minority to majority program, which allowed for Black students of color to go to schools that they're not necessarily zoned for, right? And there was this rhetoric at the time that all the Black kids were making the school system bad, or they were causing their beloved Woodlawn to go down in terms of grade. And I cannot get over seeing and visualizing my teachers spending the weekend getting petition signatures, trying to get us out of there, right? And so that is where this starts. And I know the pro St. Georgians always get so mad at us because it's not about race. It's not about race. It absolutely is. And we would be remiss and doing a disservice to all that are trying to follow and understand this fight if we did not mention how much race plays a role in it. My 7-year-old goes to school with Sean's 8-year-old little girl, and honestly, the thing that I think about most when I hear people say should they be up next, if they deserve to be up next, they wouldn't have had to draw out Black and brown people out of the districts. Zachary and Central, to be fair, and Baker did not do that, right? This like gerrymandered way of making sure that they dilute the vote and representation. And St. Georgians will tell you that they took people out that didn't want to vote yes. That is not the case. If you look at the apartment complexes, the socioeconomic status, the race of the folks that they drew out, it was by design. And so for that alone, I just cannot get behind the city, right? And then again, to Sean's point, the best schools in the district, some of the best schools in the district are already in St. George. What more do you want, right? Less than 17.5% of the population is school aged. Of that 17.5% population, 60% go to private school. So who are we really doing this for? And I struggle. And till this day, they've not been able to present a plan. Parents get asked all the time on social media, what are we doing? What does it look like day one for St. George schools? And the same thing, same rhetoric is kind of cast out every single time. We want you guys to decide what the school system looks like. We want you guys to create it when we weren't even allowed in the meetings in the beginning of the City of St. George Incorporation. And so for me, it's just too much like this illusion of something better, and like we should trade that for this idea that we'll have this utopian experience through the St. George school system. And for me, it's just not there, and they have no record to prove that it is.
I think what gives some of us pause is that we know there's a plan. They're not sharing the plan because it's probably unpopular. We know that there's some sort of meeting, consulting company, somebody that's put together a plan that they're going to follow, and they won't share it because it's better for everybody to believe whatever they want they're going to get, instead of the reality of what trade-offs you're going to have. It's hard to fight against a plan that they won't share, because everybody believes they're going to get what they want.
Okay. Pastor Smith?
The amendment calls for the development of a school system under the presumption that there is something inherently inferior about the existing school system, and there's nothing inherently inferior about the school system. These people are out there every day on the front lines, and that's why I'd rather back up and just let them talk. My response is a little bit more visceral. I'm older than they are. I've lived here most of my life, and I know what this is about. This is racism, pure and simple. It started with Baker, then moved to Central and Zachary, all in the effort to develop an independent school system where little white children would not have to go to school with little black children. It finally made its way to St. George after all kinds of machinations in order to make it happen. You must really want something really bad if you are willing to form a city just in order to get a school system. The city of St. George exists with one goal in mind, and that is having an independent school system. There was nothing wrong with the school system that existed. The fact that they want to continue in the magnet programs that exist in East Baton Rouge Parish is proof in my mind that there's nothing wrong with the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. And rather than be intellectual about it, let's just call it what it is. They're racist.
Just to add on to that, I don't think people understand that you have to own your impact, because they want to say, oh, I'm not racist, my friend's not racist, but if you're contributing to a racial agenda, what are we left to believe? You have to own your impact.
Well, Mayor Dustin Yates, he wasn't able to come, but he has been on a press tour. He had a recent press conference, and one of the statements that he said is that the proposed amendment, if it's approved by the voters, it will give residents a tax break. And so the question that remains at large is if this will be a tax break for St. George residents or EBR parish residents as a whole. So what are you all thoughts on that? Just him speaking out and saying, oh, this will be a tax break.
How do you know that it's a tax break when you don't know what the budget for the city is?
There you go. Yeah.
They have yet to present a plan for budgeting for their own city. They have no budget for their infrastructure. They have no real police department. One person who liaises with the sheriff's office doesn't have a car, doesn't have a dog, doesn't have a whistle, but he is the entire police department. How can you say that there's going to be a tax break when you don't know how much they're paying in taxes right now? They offer no plan. They have no empirical data to support the statements that they're making. They simply throw them out there and expect people to take it.
Yeah. I know I've personally tried to do a little digging. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why, we did invite him to come so he could explain more upon the tax breaks. But with him not being here, we're kind of left in, a gray area of where this leaves residents.
I don't have a problem with them forming a school system as long as they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
They're not willing to pay for it. They're willing to make the rest of the parish pay for what they have decided to do. I've used this example over and over again. It's like asking for a divorce and then saying that you pay for all of the divorce expenses and give me all the assets and you are left with the expenses. If you want to form your own school system, that's fine. You got your city, you want to form your school system, that's fine. Pay for it. Pay for the buildings, pay for the grounds, pay for the legacy costs, pay for the teachers, pay for everything. Don't simply have it given to you gratis. And the excuse that they did it with Baker and they did it with Central and they did it with Zachary, it was wrong then. I said it was wrong when it happened then, and it is wrong now. And I don't believe that you should exacerbate wrong by continuing to do wrong by saying, well, we have a history of doing wrong, so since we've done wrong in these 3 cases, let's continue to do wrong with this one as well. Pay for it. Oh, you can't pay for it. You don't have any money. So how are you going to? Oh, and by the way, we want to continue to stay in your magnet school programs, and we want to continue to let our little children gravitate into these Spanish parish schools that they're in, while you pay for everything else.
I struggle to answer that one, Destiny, because someone else asked me that the other day. How are they giving you a tax break? I really think he just pulled it out of the sky. I really don't think that there was any validity to it. And in fact, I asked kind of one of the pro St. Georgian folks on my blog, was just like, how are y'all doing y'all's math, right? And the way that he explained it to me was they're basically relying on privatization, so like outsourcing a lot of the simple day-to-day like janitorial things, like things that we consider as part of a budget an operating budget within a traditional public school system. They're planning to outsource a lot of that and privatize it. And so to me, like, I know like the young people say the math ain't mathin', it's just not. Like, even if you look at, I know a couple times Dustin has said on record, 100 million minus 40 million means they get 60 million, but that's still not enough money for an operating budget for a school system, even of 5 schools. And so to the tax break piece, I think they just honestly just needed something to get buy-in because they still don't have that public facing plan. And for me, that's as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. If he had the numbers, why not release them?
Yeah.
It's funny how he says a couple of weeks. So after the vote, he'll release the numbers. So it sounds like a campaign promise.
Yes. One thing that I do want to point out, just with that, saying that this will be a tax break, we have the EBR coroner's office, and Baton Rouge residents, they pay for it, but St. George residents do not. So that's why I'm raising that question. The tax break, if Baton Rouge residents are already paying for a service that other cities do not pay for.
District Attorney's Office also. They don't pay for the District Attorney's Office. They don't pay for the Public Defender's Office. It's not just one office that they don't pay for. It's not included in their budget. It's not a line item. It's not a general item. It does not exist. And they lied to the residents of St. George by saying that we can form a city and lower your taxes at the same time.
Well, they had a chance in the formation of the city to lower their taxes. When they took over, when they had to vote in the 2% sales tax, it didn't have to be 2%. since they were efficient and ran the numbers and knew everything that was gonna happen, they could have done 1.5, 1.7% sales tax. They didn't do it. They're saying that the surplus that they have now is proof that the city works, but they're not giving the money back. So the school tax is gonna, they're gonna lower it. I don't see how, and they won't show how.
So does this appear to be a financial burden to Baton Rouge residents just off of that statement and not seeing any numbers?
If they go through with, if this amendment passes, it will certainly be a financial burden to the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. I frankly believe it's also a burden to the residents of St. George.
Yeah, and then not to mention so there's a 4-year cliff built in, right? So the MFP formula, the formula that's used statewide for every single pupil within every single school district in the state, which is why we've been like sounding the alarm to the whole state that this is not just our problem, it's y'all's too. Essentially, after the 4 years of St. George absorbing costs and having to figure out how to pay for things, the state will then recalculate that formula, which means tax dollars from all of us. And so people, like, we're again trying to help people connect the dots on that. Not only does that mean financial burden for the state of Louisiana and taxpayers and folks that enjoy their public school systems, but the amendment also provides for provision that says you no longer have to create a city first. So we could essentially see breakaway school districts all over the state of Louisiana. When we were in Shreveport last week or week before last, folks came up to us immediately like, oh, this could happen in Blanchard. This can happen on Uri Drive. Like, no matter where you are in the state, people can identify and see this white flight and essentially leading to a breakaway school district in their area. And so all those things are financial burdens, right?
Okay.
And this would also happen in rural areas, also. So it's not, there's an added element of classism involved in this. And a part of an overall situation where they're trying to take away everything public libraries, public parks, public schools. So you have to be on guard. We're ranked 44th in the nation for education. How is this going to get us ahead? All you're going to do is reshuffle the chairs on the Titanic. Just because this school district is rated an A and this one's a C, doesn't mean that you're going to look better for college or for work. It's just it's unbelievable, the thought process that separating or segregating would be a good idea.
And so EBR school district, they estimate that the proposed school district would take at least $94 million in local sales and property taxes, and the school district, if it was to break away and create a zone, it would qualify for as much as $20 million in state funding. So do you believe this depletes the students remaining in the EBR schools of its resources?
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
And all the people that are in magnet programs from St. George that think, I still get to stay in the magnet program. Cuts have to come from somewhere. So the magnet program's gonna get cut. So you're gonna get less of the thing that you wanted.
From a pragmatic point of view, when it comes to educators, if they're going to work in St. George's independent school system, they would have to retire from the East Baton Rouge Parish school system and reapply for the St. George school system with no guarantee that they will be hired, no guarantee that they will be given a similar rate of pay than as the one that they are currently receiving. There's a lot in there that involves risk for individuals, their health insurance, their retirement program. Nothing has been clearly defined.
So
They're asking you to vote on a hope.
Yeah.
That's what they're asking you to do.
Yeah.
They want you to change the Constitution.
On a hope, yes.
And there's a reason why it's part of the Constitution.
So I also want to, take it back to those racial relations. So also in the press conference, Mayor Yates was asked if it would be he asked if it would be mostly white children in the school district, and he answered saying it will be a majority minority district. Now, according to the U.S. Census, black people make up more than 31% of the St. George population, and white people make up more than 52%. Would this still be considered a majority minority district, in your opinion?
To be honest, he hasn't shared where he got that information from. What I believe, and you can't take my word on it, is that basically they're guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the students in St. George go to private school. When you first started, there's a chance that, definitely a chance that the private school students aren't going to come to this new public school. So in the beginning, it may look like that, but I can't even say that's true because he didn't share the numbers.
Mm-hmm. And then St. George didn't exist during this 2020 census. So I struggle. It's like, unless they're like really getting granular on the numbers, and I don't know, I was told they meaning St. George, proponents of St. George, City of St. George officials, they use survey data and polling, which is not the same as, census data, census tract data. I'm looking for those numbers, Destiny, and I will send them to you as soon as I find it. I'm going to dig until I find it, because we would like to know that, right? Like essentially day one, what would be the makeup, considering the black and brown children, sure, like 88% of EBR schools is black and brown.
Yes.
So of course, like as it stands right now, those 5 schools are predominantly black and brown. But day one, we would need to do a little bit more homework to figure out just what would be the population demographic makeup of those schools.
Yes.
And the point of bringing up those numbers, would that mean that would be a majority minority representation on the appointed school board?
That's a good question for
Yeah.
them to ask if
could-
they're able to answer questions. Yes.
White people in charge is not, is not a new thing.
And what drew that question up for me to, lead me to look up the numbers is I saw someone within the St. George community Facebook page post statistics of the racial data that they have, and it said that it was 41% white and 40% black. But it didn't list a source. It didn't cite their source of where they got that information from. So that's when I went to the U.S. Census, and that's where I grabbed my numbers.
I think it's important to remember that we're in the beginning stage of artificial intelligence. So right now, I can go to chat and make any chart I want. The numbers I quote are from the sources, which is the school district itself, which has the records.
Yeah.
So making a chart is, unfortunately misleading. It's what you believe, not what is true.
And the last thing I'll say on it too is like, I struggle to believe that if 71%, now this was on their website, right? So 71% of the city of St. George is white. I struggle to believe that 51% or 41% would still be black post, day one. Being hyperbolic, like let's say this happened, it's not going to, but let's say it happened, day one, what that would look like. I struggle to believe that it doesn't match at least somewhat, So, but I will find those numbers.
Well, you guys, we're going to stick a pin in it for right now. We're about to go on break. So everyone that is watching on the stream, don't go anywhere. We're going to have, a nice little commercial break, and we're going to welcome you back in. All right. See you later.
Indulge yourself in the ultimate experience at Phoenix Air Spa, where our professional services are specifically designed to revitalize your mind, body, and spirit. Relax, recharge, and re-emerge anew at Phoenix Air Spa. Always aesthetically you.
Welcome back to the Keep It Local Ballot Talk live panel discussion. Thank you for joining us back after this break. And so we're going to continue in with this discussion. It's been a great conversation so far. Great conversation. And so I just want to piggyback off of where we left off, just talking about those racial numbers. And so with the statistics from the U.S. Census that I did share, does this infer a racial segregation, and does it reduce the quality of education for the children in East Baton Rouge Parish?
I believe so. I mean, there's no number, there's no statistic, there's nothing out there that indicates this would be good for East Baton Rouge parish schools. And there's no number or indicator that St. George would have a better outcome with this school. So if you're not gonna have a better outcome, why hurt, EBR school systems? I don't see the point.
And while I have not spoken with anyone from that area, I would really wonder what private schools in St. George are doing at this point. Because in the next, assuming that this passes, in the next 10 years, those private schools are going to face terrible financial burdens, and many of them will be forced to close as they get their independent school district that these parents seem to say that they want. So what are you going to do with the Struma? What are you going to do with Parkview Baptist? What are you going to do with the other private schools that exist out there? Those private schools came up as a result of the desegregation decree that covered this parish for 40 plus years, and parents not wanting to send their children to the public schools. And I think that what ultimately happened is parents decided that it was too expensive, too costly for them to continue to pay for private schools while their tax dollars were supporting public schools that they were not sending their children to. And that's where all of this had its birth.
It's very thoughtful. Now, that is thoughtful to just think about the private schools that are in the areas. Because if I'm not mistaken, there will be 5 schools that, if this were to pass, 5 schools that will be taken away from East Baton Rouge Parish and being brought into its own independent school district. So do you think that that hurts not just the parish, but children within this process, children and teachers?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, any restriction on resources is going to hurt our children. There's no way around that. And I would imagine that, the school system at large, East Baton Rouge Parish school system that is, would have to get really creative on the ways that they meet those basic needs, which already is such a burden, right, within the school system. Especially when you look at the socioeconomic status of folks, in North Baton Rouge and other parts of the district. And I've seen where EBR schools, especially like under Lamont, he's done a wonderful job of like creating opportunities for like wraparound services. What does that look like if you have, less resources, less money, less finances to be able to meet those basic needs? And I don't even want to imagine that happening, right? But $94 million is a lot of money, especially when you're talking about the amount of kids we serve within EBR school system.
I also think it's important to recognize that gifted education is kind of under the special education thing. So what happens to a kid that doesn't find their motivation? Like, my daughter is in a performing arts middle school. She has straight A's because if she knows she doesn't get to be in the play, the band, all the other resources that kind of validate her and make her motivated to learn. So if you're a STEM person or you're a vocation person and you don't have access to that, how good a student are you going to be?
Yeah.
So it definitely hurts kids when they're limited in opportunities. Because what is it Einstein said about if you judge a fish based on his ability to climb a tree, it doesn't fit. So let the kids have as many opportunities to earn their education any way they can.
Okay. So supporters of this amendment say this is about improving education through local control. Do you all believe that separation is the solution?
Yeah.
No.
There's I've never heard of any company that said, nah, we want to stay small. You know, uh, I've never run into somebody that didn't want more money. They want to improve their situation. So I don't see how you're going to get these Andy Griffith ideas when you don't have sidewalks. Kids aren't going to ride their bicycle to school. You know, so but if you tell me you're going to build bicycles, build new schools, you're going to do all this stuff, that's another thing. But as we say, there's no plan. They're not sharing how they imagine they're going to get these things.
And I think it's almost like delusional, right? To think that separation is a solution. I've seen like the egregious Facebook post where in the St. George leader camp, if you will, like they're talking about how like if you basically drawing a line removes them from crime or like certain things that we deal with within EBR school system or within EBR on the whole. And so I think it's such a terrible mindset to think that you can get away from. I mean, there's poor white kids. It's not just black children. You know what I mean? So the way that they think about the world or like their worldview in general and how they apply it to the education system is so far skewed. It's almost hard to wrap your mind around it. But I think there's like this delusional idea that they can have their own little utopia over here and all the problems of the world will just exist beyond those boundaries, and that's just not the case.
And the school board has 3 representatives that represent the St. George district. So they've had opportunities to suggest changes, present changes. So far, those 3 seem to be more of a don't spend money group, not a let's make better schools group. So to think that, oh, since it's going to be more local, I'll have more power or control until you get sued. You can't just kick kids out of school. You can't just, you know, you just can't do what you want. You know, when they talk about the red tape in EBR, a lot of it's there because you gotta protect the kids. You gotta, you know, you gotta do things, and they've probably been sued to make them do that. And the same will happen to St. George. You have to give kids a chance. You have to provide services for kids. A lot of things are gonna happen, and it's not gonna end up the way they think it is, because they're not even thinking about it.
A lot of supporters, they do believe that this will create a lot of educational opportunities for their children. Do you all believe that if this amendment does pass, that that statement stands to be true?
I don't see it. No, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say that good schools don't need magnet, and I gotta ask you, are you gonna put money into a gym, into a theater, into a laboratory, into, you know, the only way your kids are gonna get the experience of a magnet is if you have it all in-house. And that's why there's magnet schools, so that because they can't keep it in one house.
Yeah. And I think one question too, Destiny, that like the folks of St. George have never been able to answer. We will ask all the time, like, what more do you want, right? Like you're saying you're going to create these better educational opportunities. What does that look like? What don't you have at Woodlawn Elementary or Parkview or some of these other, you know what I mean? Like, what don't you have that could be created at St. George but not already existence in EBR schools? And so they're never able to answer that, right? It's always kind of like this roundabout answer. And so, and again, back to what Pastor Fred said, like it is about hope, right? Like this idea that they can create something that is newer, wider, and doesn't include black and brown students, and that's just the bottom line.
Yes.
Also, most of the complaints that you hear from this group about EBR school system isn't about the education. It's about, I called the teacher, they didn't call me back. You know, somebody bullied my kid and they didn't kick the other kid out. These, you know, if we're talking about the education of our children, then what are their scores now? You know, if they're getting a good education, you know, you can complain about the schools, but then you have to give them money to build technology so you can communicate better. You know, the things that they're mad about, you know, aren't the education. It's the bus blocks, you know, traffic, and I was late to work. You know, the principal, you know, didn't reach back out to me. I mean, that's not how you decide a good education is. Whether they cater to you, they have to cater to the kids.
Well, we're about to go into another break, you guys. And so, viewers out there, don't go anywhere. Once again, we still have a lot more of this discussion, and we're going to get more into, just our views. Well, you all's views. I don't have a view. All right. All right. I'll see you all after this break.
So people ask me why I'm running. I poured my all into teaching our youth for over a decade. I have fought on the front lines at times of inconvenience and turmoil. I studied law in order to be the fighter that Louisiana needs. Why am I running? Because I am a mother, an educator, an advocate. I am not perfect, but I am prepared. I am effective, and I am you. Vote Lindsay Rubia Garcia, number 15 on your ballot, paid for by Lindsay Rubia Garcia for Congress.
Advertising and operating a business go hand in hand. Mad Game Entertainment has a long, detailed history of working within clients' budgets and delivering big results. Mad Game helped launch the popular Go Vote app. We've been involved with several successful political campaigns. We assist the everyday marketing needs for small businesses and many other organizations. We custom fit marketing plans for the largest budget and the most modest. We look forward to enhancing your presence in your industry.
He's alive right now. He walks with me. He talks with me. I know he's all right.
Y'all know it's your girl, Cornell, from Cocktails and Conversation.
It's your boy, Will Merrill, Mad Game ENT's finest.
It's me, Trish, from Trish the Truth.
I'm Casey from Casey's Corner.
And guess what, y'all?
Laugh now, laugh later.
We're now a part of the Fossum app.
Almost like, Netflix and chill, Tubi.
And guess what, guys?
Season 9 is coming.
Exclusively on Fossum TV.
We is on Fossum TV,
Laughing it up with you now, laughing up with you later.
but we on effing awesome, and that makes what? Fossum TV.
Go, watch it, stream it, laugh now, then go get your friends and laugh later.
Hee hee hee, hee hee ha.
Mad Game ENT's finest. Shout out to Fossum TV.
Laugh now, laugh later. Laugh now, laugh later.
Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back. We're still in this healthy, productive, and meaningful conversation about this proposed amendment number 2, that will be on your ballot starting tomorrow, May 2nd. Early voting starts. I hope to see all of you all out there. Okay, back to, the great conversation that we've been having so far. I do, once again, want to say that we did invite Mayor Dustin Yates to come, but he declined the invitation. But there was a lot that he did say in his press conference, and I want to point to one of the things one of the statements, and he described the views from opponents, which are you all, of this amendment, opponents of this amendment, as deliberate misinformation. So what are your thoughts on that? Basically, he's saying that you all are spouting out
What are we
misinformation.
misinformed about?
Yeah, would
Did
love
he
to
say?
know.
No, it was just misinformation.
I'd be curious as to what I'm misinformed about. I might not know the specific. It is one of the wealthiest parts of not just East Baton Rouge Parish, but it's one of the wealthiest cities now in the state of Louisiana. I do know that they want our schools for free, and they want to pay a minimum amount of legacy costs. So I'm just wondering what it is that I'm spouting misinformation about.
Well,
That's a great question.
I think part of the deception is they don't call anybody out.
Mm-hmm.
They just say they're these people.
Yeah.
These phantom people that do all the bad stuff, So it would have been easy for them to say, go claim by claim. But they can't do that because they don't have the data to back up, and we do.
Yes.
So I understand that whenever you're talking about amendment, there's politics involved, but as a working family, I just want the truth. We can disagree. You can tell me, I want this, and I can tell you I want this, and then we can hash it out.
Yes.
But for my situation, leaving EBR school system doesn't benefit me, and it harms my neighbors in EBR. So maybe a little less politics would have been better.
And how does that make you all feel, just knowing, as we stated before this town hall started, that we did reach out for them to come and, just tell their side of their perspective of the truth. And so with you all saying that you all are not receiving information as far as data analysis or just a number of something, how does that make you all feel, just knowing that they are not telling you all anything?
They're comfortable speaking in their own silo. They don't feel any need to reach out across the aisle. They don't feel any compulsion to try to convince others to see their point of view. They think that they have the numbers to win. I'm gratified by the fact that this is the first time I have an opportunity to vote on anything having to do with St. George. Up to this point, every election has excluded me, even though I'm a citizen of East Baton Rouge Parish. But in this case, my vote really counts. They don't just have to win statewide, they have to win within the parish. And while I'm very skeptical about the state vote, I think that they'll probably win the state vote. I'm very hopeful that there are enough people in East Baton Rouge Parish to oppose this and stop them in their tracks.
Do y'all believe that there's a chance that this amendment might pass within the parish?
No, I don't.
The only thing the only way possible would be rain worse than this, keeping us from getting out to vote. So, to be honest, to follow up on what was said, their pack to make this happen is 4 people. So they only have to be accountable to those 4 people that put up $400,000 to make this happen. The rest of us are grassroots, you know, working with what we got, with the time that we have, you know, in coalition with other people, because we know the many, you know, can work together and make massive changes. But yeah, like, as long as they're making those 4 people happy in the pack, they're good to go.
And say if this were to pass, how do you think this would shape Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish as a whole?
So passing on the state level in the parish, I don't see it, but I do not see it. I don't. But if it were to pass, how does it shape Baton Rouge? God, I don't even know where to begin with that question. I think, because I don't think we can hold it up in courts anymore, right? I mean, what is the courts anyways anymore? I don't know if that's even worth a strategy. But a reporter asked me yesterday, what would I do, especially concerned, I have a 2-year-old, 7-year-old, and what would I do if I had to figure out what I was going to do with my kids, right? And he was like, just be hyperbolic that this happens. And I think I told him something along the lines of, well, I would demand a seat at the table, right? Like, they've been able to hide from us. They're still doing it. They won't take a call. They won't come to open forums where they're clearing the air. And I think we would have to, like, break down the door to get a seat at the table. But I'd be willing to do whatever to make sure that my kids were in a good, position, whether that's on the EBR side or the St. George side, in terms of accountability on both ends. The work that they would have to do to get EBR to come to the table around the legacy costs and the teachers, the 478 teachers that would lose their jobs day one, all of that has to be taken care of, and we would still fight for that too. And so while I can't think like long game what the shape of the parish looks like, because I just can't imagine like dismantling that even, dismantling us even further in terms of like next steps, I would certainly go to bat for all of the people involved and make sure that at least EBR in some way, shape, or form gets made whole.
Any other thoughts as far as how do y'all think that?
Ultimately, this is going to lead to larger, louder conversations about deconsolidation. I have a friend of mine who says that the parish is essentially deconsolidated as it is with the separation of various school systems and with the lack of these independent communities paying into parish services that we mentioned earlier, the coroner's office, district attorney's office, public defender's office. But there will start to be louder, longer, more vociferous conversations around deconsolidation. Now, I might not live long enough to see that happen. I'm 64 years old. But within the next 10 years, there will be a huge outcry for deconsolidation.
So do you all believe that basically how, with them wanting to break away, do you think that there is some type of balance as far as wanting your own school but still making sure that every child in the parish is not depleted of its resources?
Are you saying they would extend grace to us? Is that what, or they're meeting with good faith? Is that the question?
In a way, because at the end of the day, everything is still up in the air. We still have to get past early voting as a whole. And then after early voting, then we have election day. And so with both sides, you all preaching out to the masses, vote no, and the St. George community saying vote yes, it's meeting different audiences. And so we don't know who is getting what rhetoric of the side of the coin. And so with this, how are we even able, just say that it might pass or it does pass, how are we able to balance that, just them wanting their own independent school district and just making sure that all students in the district are making their needs met as a whole?
To be honest, I think it'll just spark more controversy if it does pass.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground on this per se, because they had 15 years to make suggestions, vote for certain things to make the school district better, you know, as they want to call it. So the fact that this has always been about separating, that's the only answer for them. And because for me, I'd love to hear some new things about education. I'd love to for us to be the birthplace of a new way of reaching all of our children, because poverty is the biggest thing that that affects their grades. So if we could get rid of poverty, you know, work towards making it better, creating a floor that's high enough so that they can, you know, reach for things, you know. I don't, you know, as the pastor said, you know, we're just gonna get louder.
And so I know race has been playing a huge part in this conversation, and a lot of the supporters of the amendment, they're spouting the rhetoric of, you know, it's not about race, we just want better schools for our children. So what is that message that they're putting out, what does that mean to you all?
They're lying. That's what it means.
And what makes you?
It's about two things. It's about race and it's about economics.
Yeah.
St. George, I believe I have the number correct. The median income of a St. George family is $86,000 a year. Median income for a family in North Baton Rouge is less than $28,000 a year. That's a huge disparity in dollars. It's a huge disparity in access. It's a huge disparity in opportunity. It's about two things and two things only, and it amuses me to hear people try to put other spins on it when it's just about two things: race and money.
Yeah.
Race and money. And if I owned an advertising firm, that's what I'd be saying all day, every day. Race and money. Talk about classroom size, talk about all the stuff. It's about race and money. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. You preaching tonight. Preaching before Sunday. All right, so before we end this lovely conversation, I do want to ask, for those undecided voters, what would you tell them before they make their way to the polls and before they cast their ballots about this amendment?
Well, the undecided voters, I would say that this does concern you. You know, the children in your community, the economics that happen in your community, this is tied into that. So you have to make a decision either way, and I would make a decision that does not hurt somebody, especially kids, academically, socially. We've had problems with teenage violence, so pulling an opportunity from them is not going to make it better.
No.
And if you're north, south, east, or west of us, it's coming to you, because this is the what do you call it, the scientific breeding ground for 2025.
Yeah.
They're figuring out how to make it for the masses here. So, you know, and I say to any voter, you know, the last generation fought very hard for us to vote. Just utilize it. Yeah, I know it's difficult sometimes, but just use your vote.
I would speak less to the undecided voter and more to the apathetic voter. The one who has decided, I don't need to go vote. My vote doesn't make a difference. And I would simply ask them to get off their lazy asses and go vote.
Simple as that.
I mean, you just put it, like you said, simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a drop the mic statement.
Yeah, it was. I really don't need to say much more than that, Pastor Smith. But I guess I'll like kind of speak to what Sean was saying and kind of drive that home, Destiny. Like, I know some people don't have kids. I called a young man yesterday just phone banking about this ballot measure. And he said, I'm 39, I don't dabble in politics. I was like, well, politics dabbles in you, so I'm gonna need you to get it together. And he says, well, what's on the ballot? And I told him about the amendment. He said, I don't have kids. He said, what's on the ballot? And I said, and I'm not judging, right? For the people that are watching, I'm not judging. Some people are tapped
I'm
out.
judging. You're stupid. You are stupid if you don't know what's on the ballot.
Yeah, I didn't
You're
know.
uninformed. You don't read the newspaper. You don't read a magazine. You pay attention to nothing except who shot who on what street, what rap battle is going on. You are stupid and uninformed if you have to ask what's on the ballot and the vote starts tomorrow.
Yeah, but the good news is, I think I convinced him to go vote. I made it about, like Sean said earlier, this isn't just about public schools. It's not just about our parks and our libraries. It's all of the things, right? And they're eroding the public goods that we all rely on. And I'm sure you rely on some of those stuff, young man. And even though he's older than a man, and he said, you know what? Well, I'm gonna think about it. And then he texted me later because they see your number. And he said, okay, I'm gonna actually go vote. And I sent him the ballot, right? And so just like trying to get people to
Got somebody.
Yeah, get some get up about your stuff. I even told him, I was like, turn on the news. Like things are crazy right now, but I think we just have to push it back to a sentimental, social, emotional element to it. Bring, put a face and a name to this cause. Like our kids matter. And we're about the greater good. We don't need to do away with our basic public school services to be able to appease a small few people, right? And or a small minority of folks within the St. George school system. We can come together as a community, come up with holistic approaches to solving for crime and unhoused, the unhoused problems and the issues around socioeconomic status, all those things. We're spending so much time on this white flight situation that we can't even get to that. And so I just implore people to give us the opportunity to keep this district together and then ultimately not create a provision for this to be happening in your backyard next year, right?
Well, thank you all so much. And looks like somebody got off their legs behind, huh? Well, I just want to thank our live audience and our live stream audience for joining us on the conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in with Keep It Local Ballot Talk. And we're going to have some more live Keep It Local episodes coming to you soon. So make sure that you subscribe to Broadcast Baddie TV on YouTube and follow Destiny Beasley on Facebook so you stay connected to what matters most. All right, so I'll see you all later. Thank you all for joining us.